In Mega Man X, the titular X was constructed by Dr. Light to have unlimited potential, represented in-game by a variety of upgrades that can be collected to make X stronger. But why not completely ignore X's unlimited potential and try to complete the game as the little blue baby boy he is from the start? In short, can I beat Mega Man X with minimal equipment? The rules for this run are pretty simple. 1. I cannot acquire any optional upgrades from the game. This includes armor pieces, heart tanks, and sub-tanks. 2. Anything the game forces me to acquire is fair game. This includes all Maverick Boss weapons, as well as the dash boots and the Buster upgrade, but only if I acquire the Buster upgrade from 0 towards the end of the game. And that's it, so let's get started. The game starts with X fighting to protect humans, escaping an attack on an unnamed city. This stage just exists to get the player acquainted with how X controls, particularly in terms of learning how to wall jump. The point is, there's no challenge here yet. I get to the end of the stage and come face to face with the game's secondary villain, Vile. Unfortunately, X is too much of a weak little baby at this point, and Vile mercilessly beats the crap out of him until my boy Zero shows up to save him. After the fight, Zero informs us of our unlimited potential and yada yada yada, whatever. We don't need any stupid upgrades to become as powerful as you are, or whatever. Once the intro stage was finished, I got to the traditional Mega Man stage select screen. Now, here's the thing about pretty much any Mega Man challenge. The first 8 stages are rarely going to offer much resistance, and the real challenge exists in the fortress stages at the end of the game. The reason for this is because the games are built so that you can challenge any of the stages from the start, and so they all have to be reasonably tackled as the first stage. There's some variation in difficulty, but rarely enough that you can't overcome with a little bit of practice, and I have nearly 30 years of practice on this game. So it's enough to say that I basically tore through all these stages with one exception, Launch Octopus. This is where I hit my first wall. Launch Octopus is arguably the hardest of the 8 initial bosses. His basic attack is to launch torpedoes from the launchers on his shoulders, but he'll also launch fish-shaped homing torpedoes from his tentacles. And on top of that, he can spin to create a whirlpool which sucks X in and allows Launch Octopus to grab him to absorb energy, damaging X and healing Launch Octopus. He also rolls from one attack to the next, keeping the player on the back foot through most of the battle. In short, there's a lot going at once to keep up with, and X can only take a few hits before dying. After my first couple of attempts, I decided to change up my tactic. Mega Man X has a fun little Easter egg where using Boomer Kuwanger's weapon on Launch Octopus will cut off his tentacles. What this means is that if I use that, I can limit Launch Octopus's moveset to just his shoulder launchers. That should be a lot easier to deal with, so I left Launch's stage and went and easily killed Boomer Kuwanger. Now, armed with Boomerang Cutter, I got back to Launch Octopus and wow, this is actually way harder. In a move of irony appropriate for a Shakespearean tragedy, it is a lot easier to dodge the barrage of different torpedoes and vampiric whirlpools than it is to just dodge him while he's hopping around shooting torpedoes directly in front of himself. I finally took him down with some pretty serious luck, but it came down to the wire. Remember kids, persistence pays off more than dumb schemes. After that, all I had left to defeat was Flame Mammoth and Sting Chameleon, both of whom went down really quickly. It is already time to infiltrate Sigma's Fortress, and the true challenge to begin. Sigma's Fortress is a 4-stage gauge which is designed to test X at his max, and I'm very intentionally not at my max right now. It only took me 2 pages of script to get here, and I'm certain I will at least triple that length from here on. Buckle up, we're in for a ride. Infiltrating Sigma's Fortress starts with a climb up some conveniently placed floating platforms leading into the fortress itself. It's a real easy climb if you can charge Chameleon Sting, which I can't because I get the upgraded Buster from 0 after this section. I died several times to the enemies spawning in and knocking me into the abyss below, but I finally made it into the fortress to meet up with Zero, and oh good, Vile's here. Zero, clearly aware that X did not listen to his speech from the beginning of the game, tells X to hang back while he takes on Vile himself, but X can't leave Zero to fight alone. Unfortunately, by the time X gets there, Zero has been captured by Vile, and it's up to X to face down Vile and save his friend. Yeah, it goes exactly like it did last time. X is ruthlessly beaten down, and Zero must heroically sacrifice himself to destroy Vile's ride armor and give our little baby X a fighting chance. After seeing his friend die, X's inherent sense of justice and rage at the senseless loss of life causes him to break out of the web that Vile has trapped him in and fully re-heal himself, ready for the fight. Or at least that's what I assume is happening here. The game doesn't really explain itself, but I guess the devs needed to do something to make this fight not unfair. Vile's pattern is fairly simple. The hardest element of the fight is that he can dash outside the bounds of the arena, making it harder to know what he's going to do. Fortunately, he only has 3 moves. He'll trap you in an electro web and drop bombs on you, and... oh, I've already killed him. Yeah, Vile without his right armor is something of a pushover. It's like X's rage pushed the little blue bot over the edge, and X unleashed his true fury on the wannabe before him. With Vile defeated, X kneels beside the body of his fallen comrade, and before Zero takes his final breath and offers his robot soul up to the robot afterlife, he gives X his own arm cannon so that our little baby boy can be slightly less baby. With the upgraded Buster, I can now charge up Chameleon Sting and become the fighting rainbow that Mega Man was always meant to be. It also has the added benefit of making you immune to all damage for a short amount of time. And using it right above this Haganmer, yes, that's what these guys are called, and no, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, gives you just enough time to climb this entire shaft with little trouble. Waiting at the top of the shaft, however, is Boomer Kuwanger, and yeah, he didn't last long. Moving on. After Boomer Kuwanger is Boss Spider, the first boss where the game expects you to actually be powered up. Okay, so Boss Spider's pattern is really easy. You just find the path he'll take down the webs from the top of the arena to the bottom of the arena, and don't be there when he gets there. Once he gets to the bottom, he'll open his weak point temporarily, and you can retaliate by shooting him with shotgun ice in that window of time. The problem is, I can't just follow the path down fast enough reliably to be out of its way. I've watched people do this fight who are able to trace his path accurately enough to be standing right beside it when it reaches the ground and blast it with a charged shotgun ice. I've decided those people are wizards. I, on the other hand, am a bumbling toddler that gets killed by Boss Spider in 2 hits. The point is, this fight is simply not in my skill set, and I always get past it by either hitting it with a Hadouken or just eat the damage and refill it using Subtanks. But I don't have either of those, so it's time for this bumbling toddler to become a man. The good thing is that when I do, inevitably, run out of lives, I get to keep my upgraded Buster, which means getting up to Sigma's Fortress is going to be easier. Much easier. It took me an hour to get its health into a range where I could kill it. When I finally got it there, I was 1 hit away from death, and I honestly didn't know when I'd get to this point again. So much of it relied on pure luck for me. It really boiled down to the boss giving me a series of easy-to-read patterns and being kind enough not to drop many mini-spiders on my head. When I got down to the last hit, it tried dropping more tiny spiders on me, but I was able to destroy 3 of them and dodge the last one to land a charge shot to defeat Boss Spider at long last. 1 stage down, 3 to go. The second phase of Sigma's Fortress sees me fighting Chill Penguin again. Yeah. With Storm Eagle, however, I decided to use the Buster instead of his weakness Chameleon Sting in order to save ammo for the real boss of the area, Rangda Bangda. Rangda Bangda is a pretty easy boss, even for a bumbling toddler like myself. His main attacks are to open one of his eyes, which will attack by flying out of their sockets at X or shooting energy balls at him. The challenge comes when he uses his nose to attack because he closes shutters on either side of the room, trapping you in a narrow shaft over instant death spikes. He does deal enough damage with his nose to kill you in 2 hits, but it's not super hard to dodge if you aren't a bumbling toddler, but... I ultimately got past him by destroying 1 eye and then destroying the nose, leaving 1 eye left. The problem with doing it that way is that the shutters stay shut when you destroy the nose and don't open again, meaning you can't actually see the other eye. But visibility doesn't matter as long as you can spam shots through the wall and hit the eye, which is what I did. This leaves me with what, on paper, should be the hardest level of the game. It's a gauntlet of the 5 remaining bosses, followed by D-Rex, a mechanoid that hits exceptionally hard and is able to stun X by slamming into the walls. But it wasn't D-Rex that I was worried about. It was the rematch with Launch Octopus. Surprisingly, however, Launch Octopus gave me no trouble despite my strategy not changing at all. I guess the hour I spent hopelessly trying to dodge Boss Spider got my reaction time up to what it should be for Launch Octopus. D-Rex was a fun challenge, but not nearly as hard as Boss Spider. D-Rex has 3 moves. He'll try to slam into the walls to knock X down to stun him, he'll shoot a couple of giant purple blasts at X, and he'll try to slam his top half down onto his bottom half and crush X in between them. With some practice, these moves can be pretty easily dodged and weaved around, so I had D-Rex down in a few tries. That just leaves the final showdown with Sigma. The stage is just a vertical shaft with little caterpillar bots that climb down the walls, which you can use to refill your sub-tanks and weapon energy between attempts. I don't have any sub-tanks, but I did use the little wormies to fill up my lives and weapon energy between attempts. The fight is a 3-stage battle of increasing difficulty that I have to do on 1 health bar and no E-tanks. I wouldn't say any of the individual fights are super hard by themselves, but having to do all 3 back-to-back is gonna be a challenge. The battle starts with Velgarder, Sigma's robotic wolf. He doesn't hit hard, but he's fast and kinda hard to dodge. Regardless of that, he still goes down pretty easily without exacting a huge toll on me. But with no ability to heal between fights, every bit of health I lose to Velgarder only makes the 2 Sigma phases harder. Furthermore, every time I die, I have to start all 3 phases over again. There's no winning this fight in bits. I have to do it all in the minimum health the game starts me with. After killing his dog, Sigma comes to challenge you himself, and he is an exceptionally hard boss. Unless you understand his pattern. See, Sigma is programmed to chase X down and hit him for significant damage, which means that in a normal battle, you're kept constantly on your toes, futilely trying to dodge a much larger and stronger Reploid. What the game wants is for you to barely scrape by, having to rely on all your upgrades in order to stay alive. However, that programming to chase X down leads to a very easy exploit to his pattern, where if you climb straight up the wall, he'll jump from wall to wall trying to catch you. If you climb the wall to the top and count his wall touches 5 times and immediately drop to the ground, you can get 2 free shots in. Rinse and repeat this process several times, and you can easily kill Sigma without taking any damage whatsoever. Unfortunately, as anyone who has played the Mega Man X series knows, killing Sigma is an ineffective method of actually stopping him. The only thing X actually managed to do was destroy Sigma's body. His head is still alive, and attaches itself to a mechanoid that's been hiding in the back of the darkened room. This boss is an absolute beast, which at a minimum deals 8 damage to X with a maximum of 14 for some attacks, and X's maximum health for this run is 16. This means I can handle 2 hits from any of Sigma's attacks, if I manage to get past Velgarder and Sigma's first form without taking any damage. That's not a thing that's happened often. On top of that, the only way to damage Wolf Sigma is to attack Sigma's head, which is at the top of the screen, meaning you have to find a way to climb up to it. The best way to attack Sigma is by standing on one of his claws, jumping off to drop a rolling shield onto his head, and then landing back on his claw. Unfortunately, the claws shoot lightning out of the tops and bottoms of them, and even if you can reliably dodge the lightning, the other claw will sometimes come over to swat you like a bug. To say this battle is hard is an understatement, and that's with a maxed out X. This fight is damn near impossible unless you're extremely good at quickly reacting to attacks. And don't forget, dying here kicks you back to before Velgarder. Most of my attempts were, as you'd expect, immediate death. There were a few where I managed to deal some damage before dying, but I never really got past the halfway point. I tried all kinds of different strategies. Chameleon Sting to cheese the fight does too little damage, and charging it back up takes too long. Fully charged shot from the edge of the screen where the lightning couldn't hit me? Other claw came to squish me. Finally, I got this one run where Sigma didn't attack me directly much, opting instead to blast the hell out of the floor. I got him down to 1 hit left, but I missed landing back on the claw and fell down to the floor where I was very quickly killed trying to climb back up. I gotta say, that one hurt and almost sapped my will to continue with this challenge altogether. It took me a bit to finally get out of my funk from losing that run and start focusing down again. I even got myself killed by Velgarder during this, but I finally pulled myself out of it after turning to YouTube and seeing how speedrunners beat this boss so quickly. A problem I'd been having with defeating Wolf Sigma had been the fact that a lot of the time he just decides you'll die at the start of the fight by firing death balls directly at you. But I realized that pretty much everyone who speedruns this game climbs up the left wall to get on top of Sigma's left claw immediately, instead of waiting for the claw to come to them. Sure, I've done this before, but I always considered it a risky maneuver because the hands stop randomly. But it didn't take long for me to get the timing down so I could bounce up to the claw pretty reliably. That said, this still didn't make it easy. The near win was about halfway through my recording sessions, and after that was a long line of really rough defeats. But I kept at it though, and inched my way closer and closer to that final victory until... I finally took him down. This challenge was a fun one, with a bit of a brick wall at the end. The thing about X1 though is it's probably the easiest X game to do a minimalist like this in. Maybe it's because it's the first in the series, and maybe it's just because it's a game I've played since I was 3. Either way, I want to do this run in more games. I was mostly surprised with how much trouble I had with Watch Octopus on his stage. It's objectively the hardest of the 8 Maverick bosses, but still, I wasn't anticipating him to be such a brick wall early on. And I especially didn't expect to get past him so easily on the Sigma stages. I guess it really just shows how weirdly random these challenges can be sometimes. I'm going to pick this up with X2 at some point in the near future. I have a handful of bigger videos I'm working on, and I'm kinda treating these challenges as fun in-between projects that are more or less off schedule. This video's actually been recorded and pretty much scripted since after I finished my Breath of the Wild challenge last year. So, you know, yeah. Either way, I know exactly what my next video is going to be. And at time of rewriting this ending, it's almost ready for editing. I'm starting a loose series called The Magic Of, where I talk about games that I have a deep love for and what about them speaks to me. First game I'm tackling in that series is Halo Combat Evolved, and I'm pretty excited to talk about it. It's one I don't see getting discussed as much anymore, despite the pedigree that Halo has. Maybe it's just not retro enough yet, I don't know, but I want to talk about it, so that's what I'm going to do. Until then, have fun!